Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I am Gunnar Rios, and welcome to another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. I am joined tonight by Mr. Blanca Khan, Mr. Esoteric, and Mr. Hadowolf. And tonight's episode is going to be a fun one. So, for those that don't know, a couple months ago, as of the filming of this, there was a new Devil May Cry Netflix anime show that came out to mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people hated it, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But that sparked Mr. Hotto Wolf, who has never played the Devil May Cry series before. He was busy playing other things when that was hot and fresh on the
hmm
PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, and then 4, and
hmm
so on and so on. But he decided, he saw the show, he liked it, he was like, what is this world about? And, very
hmm
conveniently, totally not a stunt at all by Capcom, the entire series was at a deep discount. So Mr. Wolf decided, I'm going to check it out and try it out and see what all the hubbub is about because for
hmm
those that don't know, Devil May Cry is lauded as one of the premier action combat games. It's the game where the kind of action combat high octane super crazy combo games came from. Games like Bayonetta, games like Astral Chain, games like
hmm
Nier Automata. Devil May Cry is credited as being the kind of not the genesis of it.
Grandfather.
Yeah, like the grandfather. He was like the OG one back in the day.
hmm
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's going to be the topic for tonight. Wolf is going to talk about his experiences with DMC 1 through 5, his likes, his dislikes, his questions, comments, concerns, and we're going to chime in. Some of us have played them when they were relevant on the PlayStation 2, and Mr. Esoteric has also seen the anime. So when we get to that part, we can talk about, we'll have conversation because me and Kong have not, as of yet, seen the anime, so we don't know what that's about. So anyway, this is going to be Hotto Wolf front and center. We're obviously all going to chime in as per a podcast. It won't be
hmm
just him. But with that intro out the way and all that being said and done, I will now pass it off to you, Mr. Hotto Wolf.
Thanks, Gunnar.
No
Okay,
problem.
so I'm gonna start off with Devil May Cry 1, which all Devil May Cry games I played on the Steam Deck console. So that was an that was a hurdle in itself, especially for the first three. No, for the first four games actually. Um, so DMC 1, I'll admit, from the time the cutscene started, when he got out the shower, when the phone was ringing, it was straight action for the first two or three missions, where it was just like waves of enemy after enemy after enemy, which was like that was pretty cool. Um, and then going to the castle to see how, or I guess the environment that you're going to be traversing through. At first, it didn't really interest me to see that I'm pretty much stuck at a castle and I'll be running around a castle all game long. But the way that the game was built to explore the castle, I felt was clever and beautifully done because it really did give me like Metroid vibes. Because Metroid is similar. This is built in similar way where you're either in a space station like in Metroid um, Fusion, or you're on a planet with limited areas like Metroid Dread, and you have to go back and forth and do backtracking to different rooms and areas until you get to the final boss and win. Devil May Cry obviously was similar to that, and I loved it. Um, the to me, the first game still did not justify Dante as a character for me, which I always believe that Dante is a pretty bland, um, kind of like a regular run of the mill, one of those overly cool action anime Japanese characters, which to me I'm over those type of archetypes type characters. So like for me, he's not he at this point, me still playing the game, it's like, okay, I'm playing Dante, great. Um Boss fights was interesting. Some of them were not that good. Like I don't like the blob thing that you have to turn the lights on to give him a physical form so that you can physically hit. It's an interesting fight, but when you have a game that has really bad camera angles and that the camera can just shift on you, and when it shifts, it can potentially change the direction of your controls, it can easily become a frustrating fight or a frustrating situation to get yourself into. And I found myself constantly in that situation in Devil May Cry 1, where the cameras would just it'll just shift, and from holding the stick forward and then the camera shifts, now Dante will immediately turn around and then run to the opposite direction. And that's either an enemy that I'm trying to create distance between that ends up hitting me, or I'm just constantly shifting between the two camera angles and realizing that, okay, well, I don't have control over this. So for me personally, that was a very taxing situation. The one major line he really showed emotions for when he thought Trish died, and it was a really cheesy line, and I don't know, like that was so cheesy. I put the Steam Deck in sleep mode, and I had to process it myself, and I was like, this is a game that came out when I was a kid. Wolf, just bear with it. Because that was, oh my gosh, that was so cheesy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It was like, this is bad. Anyhow, overall, Devil May Cry 1 was challenging. It always kept me engaged in combat. It never allowed me to forget that, you know, Dante um is constantly in danger, and it was different to video games that I've ever played before. And the camera angles I dealt with because I do understand that it came what the first Devil May Cry was rooted from what would have been a Resident Evil game. So I get it, and it did actually help with the eeriness of the castle environment. It really did. So I think overall, Capcom did an accidental. They hit gold accidentally, and I will say that Devil May Cry 1 is a pretty good game. I won't lie on that.
Okay.
Um, then we get to 2.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, 2. So immediately, what I liked about 2 is the fact that you automatically get double jump off the rip. There is no red orbs to buy them. You don't need to upgrade into it. You get it right away. Because Ear Hike in Devil May Cry 1 was 20,000 red orbs. That's a lot, especially for someone who's trying to steamroll through the games and trying to beat each game in a week. 20,000 red orbs is a lot, because you still have to buy your potions and so forth. So to automatically have double jumping in Devil May Cry 2 was great. He had a running up the wall mechanic to flip backwards, which I never used because it has no iframes on it, to my understanding. Um, what I also liked is that it introduced enemies having HP bars, so I know how to focus on an enemy. Everything else. One, Dante had no lines. He said something very short in the beginning, and he said something very short in the very end, and that was it. There was no premise on why you needed to fight the bosses. Bosses were just there. Then there is the guns. Guns. So he they didn't call Ebony and Ivory guns. They called them double, I think it was called twin pistols.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't called Ebony and Ivory. These pistols are the most broken piece of shits I've ever seen in a video game, period. First and foremost, they OTG with unlimited stun. So as the enemy, if you knock the enemy down and you shoot with your pistols, the system would slowly rise the enemy in the air while you're dealing damage and have them in a complete stun lock. The only enemy that the pistols did not work on were bosses. Everything else, pistols burned through like it was nothing. And then you didn't even need your sword. I played Devil May Cry 2, the only time I used my sword were against bosses, unless I was fighting the helicopter, which is the worst boss in any video game that I've played. And I've played a lot of video games in my 30 plus years.
Oh man, that's a statement.
That boss fight is the worst. boss fight I have ever played in any video game whatsoever. I don't know what they would think. I don't know what happened here. I really don't know. The whole video game was just bad. Not to mention the natural system limitations that I was dealing with, or the system issues that I was dealing with for playing on the Steam Deck. The game constantly freezing on me or randomly shutting down on me, and it's like, I kind of want to stop playing this. And then I asked you guys in the chat, if I play 2 hours of this game, does it still count? And even though I got validation, I still went back because I'm stubborn. And I struggled through DMC2, which I ended up beating in about 10 hours. So that was about 2 hours every day of playing for a week.
Yeah, and
Um,
I don't know if you knew this, Wolf, but it was under a different direction, so that's why it was so drastically different from the
oh,
first
it
one.
was
So
dramatically different.
yeah.
And I do love Dante's design, though. I will say that. Like, I think his design for Devil May Cry 2 was more, it was a more mature Dante, I think they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
A serious Dante, or a Dante that's just like he's now darker inside because of, I guess, all the ordeals he was going through. But it definitely didn't feel like a Devil May Cry game. It definitely did not. It felt like a different game with Dante as the featured character. So it was even hard to even say I'm playing Devil May Cry to begin with. I will never ever, where I can see myself maybe loading Devil May Cry 1 if I'm maybe paid to play it. You couldn't pay me to play Devil May Cry 2 again. You couldn't. I am done with that game. I will never play that game. Holy shit, it's bad.
um,
That's
so I wanted to chime in briefly. Another reason why
mm,
you may like his composure, like, and who he is because if I'm not mistaken, story wise, that's considered the fourth installment of Devil May Cry
mhm,
series. So yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, he's an older Dante. He's more stoic in this game, but game mechanic wise, it was just a lot of bad things. The enemies were not challenging at all. They didn't attack me, and I played on normal difficulty for all of them. They didn't attack me. They would just stand there, and then when they felt like it was their turn, then they would hit. And then you had these tank mini bosses, where literally if you just walked up to the tank, it couldn't hit you because it didn't move for it to say, okay, it's gonna run me over. And then the nozzle for where the gun was, for where it would shoot its missiles or its cannon, whatever, was so far out behind Dante that the hitbox wouldn't read. So you didn't really need to use your guns against the tank. You could just walk up to the tank and just keep swinging your sword. And maybe like after 2 minutes of swinging at the tank, it finally would die, but you would never get hit because they don't move. Um, Honestly, I think the most challenging enemy in the whole game were these giant monkeys, these gorilla-like monkeys. That was the most challenging enemy to me in the whole game. Even the final boss was a joke, and I wouldn't take him seriously as a final boss overall. His goals to me was nonsense. His voice line was horrible. I could bitch about this game all day. I'm moving on. Um, then we get to everybody's heart and soul of the Devil May Cry franchise, Devil May Cry 3. I will admit, of the three games on the special edition version that I bought, Devil May Cry 3 is obviously the best of the three of them. Devil May Cry 3 is one of the best action games I've ever played in my 30 plus years. So where 2 was the worst, 3 was the best, is one of the best. And I will admit that. I will die on that hill. Devil May Cry 3 is revolutionary in a lot of ways. Um and I really think that I can understand why you guys fell in love with the franchise by the time you played Devil May Cry 3. Anybody who played Devil May Cry 3 as their first action game I can honestly see at that moment they would want to compare any other action game that they play to Devil May Cry 3. I really feel like the story was amazing. Yeah, it's an anime, it's an anime like story, brothers going against each other. One is looking for ultimate power, the other one is just free spirited. We've seen that in many animes before, even if they weren't twins, or maybe they're just best friends. We've seen that before, so it's not like it's anything new that they added between Virgil and Dante's um, relationship. But overall, to see, first and foremost, the style system to me was great. It was that was an amazing addition. Gunslinger, Swordmaster, Royal Guard, and Trickster, and then later on in the game you unlock Doppelganger and Quicksilver. But my playstyle was mostly between Trickster and Swordsmaster, because I really don't see the point of Gunslinger and Royal Guard. I don't know why in a PS2 game they would put a one frame mechanic in an action game. That doesn't like for me. That's just not my cup of tea. But but Gunslinger and the Trickster and Swordmaster to me was great styles. I love Swordmaster. Swordmaster's just broken. It is just the best style. You get a whole new set of moves for each weapon just with Swordsmaster alone. Um, which I really did. I really did enjoy that. The weapons were amazing. I love Cerberus. It was one of my favorite weapons. Cerberus was my favorite weapon, but Agni and Rudra, the wind and fire double swords, was more reliable. So I used that more than Cerberus. But Cerberus was hands down my favorite weapon. The flipping and the spinning and the ice, and I was just like, this is just badass. This is like for me. However, Nevin, the guitar, I'm gonna say it's one of the most ridiculous weapons I've ever had to use in a video game. I didn't like it, and I just think the guitar was silly. I thought that's just my personal opinion, but I think they knew that because is the guitar directly affects his Devil Trigger and gives him new moves in Devil Trigger. So it was like, so you guys knew this weapon was stupid, and you guys made it into a mechanic that would entice people to want to play it. But I ignored the guitar. I didn't. The boss fight to get it was really nice. I think it was a nice balanced boss fight. She can easily kill you, but there was a lot of openings to where it was fair and it was challenging nonetheless, which like most of the bosses were in Devil May Cry 3, in my personal opinion. They were Beowulf was one of the hardest boss fights in the game for me. I
Mm.
lost to him a lot. But then the stupid worm that was flying around the room was a joke. Um, so I think that was a nice balance in the different bosses that you fought in Devil May Cry 3. Green orbs was almost non-existent. I don't even like I think I got lucky at the times that I would get a green orb to revive my health. Or else I was stuck buying potions, pretty much green stars and large green stars. Um, Camera angle was still bad, but again, I think that's when they started to implement where you can like slightly turn it here and there, or the cameras would be a little bit better based on the situation you were in. So it was bad, but it didn't really get me killed like it used to, or like it was doing in Devil May Cry 1. Um, Ending Devil May Cry 3 made me excited to play Devil May Cry 4 and 5. Like I was eager to play Devil May Cry 4 and 5. The same night I ended 3 is the same night I started Devil May Cry 4. Because I really think that game, this particular game is phenomenal. It has its drawbacks, yes, but I think what Capcom did with Devil May Cry 3 was it's unmatched in comparison to other action games that was on the PlayStation 2 at the time. And this game brought in Virgil for me to see who Virgil is as a character. between the two twins, if you guys didn't know already, Virgil is the one that I prefer the most. I feel like Virgil, before playing all these games, I feel like Virgil was more of a character or more of a to me, he had more depth as a character than Dante did. Um, but again, things, it starts to change after a while.
Hmm.
Um, then there's Devil May Cry 4, which I started the same night I finished 3, which introduced Nero, which when Devil May Cry 4 first was announced when we were younger, I thought Nero would have been Dante's kid because Dante is the free spirit. So he's supposed to be the ladies' man. He's supposed to be the one that's like, yeah, I just did this one night and I'm moving on. Who would think that it would be Virgil who actually attempted to start a family and just, I guess, left it for the search of power. Um, so Nero was introduced. At first, I didn't really like him. Um, I just felt like I felt like they was forcefully trying to replace Dante because after 3 games of playing with a character named Dante or an avatar named Dante, that is the character I'm looking forward to in the next game. So when Nero was introduced, I was like, I kind of want to get to the part where I play as Dante. Um, but honestly, Devil May Cry 4 was designed for Nero, and Devil May Cry 4 had a lot of like issues with it that like the bosses in Devil May Cry 4 were no better than really the bosses in like Devil May Cry 2 or Devil May Cry 1. They're not that great, they're not memorable in my personal opinion. I felt that the final boss of Devil May Cry 4 was a joke. I felt it was and it was like a fight that wasn't designed to be difficult, but a fight that's designed to frustrate you so you make mistakes. Um That's how I felt with Devil May Cry 4's final boss. And then they had this stupid lightning zipping creature called Blitz, and he was like this cool lizard, and he would turn into lightning and zip around the screen, and then he'd come in, and I was like, oh, this is a cool enemy. Like I thought he would be like a mini boss or something. So the stupid lizard came down out of the sky like Thor, zipped around the lightning field. I would attack him with my sword. I'll take damage. Me not understanding how to fight this thing. I don't know if I'm supposed to use a different weapon. I don't know if I'm supposed to use a specific style because this creature is introduced by the time you take over Dante. And then after like 30 seconds of zipping around, he self-destructs. And I'm like, what kind of enemy does this? Like, what was that? And then later in the game, they give you 2 of them to fight at the same time. I'm like, oh my God. like, it's like, so pretty much dodge the enemy for like 30 seconds, let it self destruct, and just don't be close to him because you'll take a good amount of HP from it. It was just like, whatever. But what I love is that Nero had the Devil Bringer, it's what it's called, and where he can like counter projectiles and throw them back at the opponent, or he can grab enemies and slam them, and then he had like where he can stretch his arm and pull smaller enemies to him to
Mm-hmm.
keep combos going, or if it was a major boss he can pull himself to the boss. That was really cool. And then when you play as Dante, you see that the game really was truly designed for Nero and not Dante, because Dante ended up chasing enemies around the field more often, whereas Nero was able to like pull enemies to him. So there was less chasing and more comboing with Nero than with Dante. But this was the game that introduced the 4 styles to be changeable on the fly. And I think that's what Dante really needed in comparison to Devil May Cry 3, where you can only do it in between missions. um, so yeah, Devil May Cry 4 to me was like it was good, but it didn't compare to Devil May Cry 3. Um, but at the same time, I started to see the changes that I feel the game series needed. Um, like for instance, I got more green orbs. All right. I'm okay with challenging video games. What I'm not okay with is you throw wave and wave and wave and wave of enemies at me, and there is no real way for me to continue going other than a wonky dodge mechanic or jumping. I've never played a video game where jumping is your evasive attack. I've what? I It was so foreign to me that I bitched about it for like a good 20 minutes. Like, why am I jumping to evade the attack? Like, what? But then Devil May Cry 3, he had like this little roll like thing that they started to introduce, but it wasn't very good. And it had hardly any invincibility frames. So it's just like, okay, this is a wonky dodge mechanic. And I still, after 3 games, I still have to jump to dodge an enemy. So Devil May Cry 4 started to bring that in where you had more dodging mechanics or ways of avoiding enemies' attacks. And if the game realized that it's throwing enemies at you, 1 or 2 enemies will drop a green orb that actually restores your health, which allows the combat to keep going. It doesn't interrupt the gameplay, but it also keeps the player alive to keep going. In the end of the day, it's still a video game, and I feel like you have to make sense of it. If you're gonna keep challenging your player, you still got to give them a way to keep going, because not everybody's skill set is the same. So Devil May Cry 4 started to introduce that, and I thought that was really nice. Devil May Cry 5, which I have no notes for because I can talk about this game from my heart. Devil May Cry 5 is by far my favorite Devil May Cry game of all 5.
Oh, wow, okay.
It is Devil May Cry 5 did everything that I asked for this franchise for. Um, First and foremost, by this time, my respect for Dante has started to change, but I'll get into that later. Um, Devil May Cry 5 had, to me, was the full circle that brought everything that Virgil and Dante was going through. It brought it all together for them. And Nero character Nero's placement in the whole story was to end that. And I understood that now. So before I just thought that Nero would just be like the next cool character who had a smart mouth and he ultimately would have been the Dante replacement, which story-wise, yes, he does replace Dante. If you guys didn't know that, I'm gonna spoil that for you guys and anyone listening. He does replace Dante. But But at the end, he replaced Dante with a different mindset and allowed him to have a stronger devil trigger than both his father and his uncle. So basically, the premise of it is that Virgil ultimately abandoned his humanity. And because he abandoned his humanity, he separated himself from his demon form and his human form. That's where V comes from. So V is Virgil's human form.
Ah.
Um, right. That's his human form. So the main bad guy for Devil May Cry 5 is Virgil, but he's the good guy and the bad guy who comes together to be the bad guy ultimately, in the end of the game. So he separates himself, he becomes Urizen, I think that's the boss's name. Trish lost to him. What I love, he beat Trish and he beat Lady. Then he took them and turned them into demons to fight to fight Nero. So it was like that's to me that's that's insult to injury to insult. Because instead of killing them, he turned them into his soldiers. Dante, Dante was knocked out for a bit, but so what ultimately happens is Urizen is almost unbeatable because Virgil threw away his humanity and became this uncontrollable demon. Dante and Nero had to figure out what they're going to do to stop Urizen. But at that time, Nero doesn't know that Virgil is his father. Dante doesn't know that Virgil has split himself into 2 parts. obviously V knew this the whole time, and V joined their side so that they can beat Urizen, so that he can get the body back, so that he can become Virgil again. So
Some
for
Kingdom Hearts
me,
shit right there.
that was some reverse flash shit for me, because reverse flash is the only villain I know who will go a way above and beyond to maintain his existence. Um, so for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, this character is crazy. Like, the shit that he's willing to do for power. He cut his own son's arm off for power, because Nero's original. So in Devil May Cry 4, the devil trigger for Nero is coming from Yamato. So Yamato being Virgil's main weapon, and when Yamato was fused with Nero's hand, that's where that half of devil trigger form would come from, where it's like this blue energy around him would come from, and that's what happened. Virgil came back and he was like, yeah, I'm taking this back, and cut his son's arm off, and then split himself into two and created this master plan, which is Devil May Cry 5, to be able to reunite to gain even more power. And what I also love, story wise, anyways, is that Dante had to. This is the game where Dante finally accepts his position in his role that his father expected of him. And when he does, he unlocks a new Devil Trigger mode, which is called Sin Devil Trigger. That completely trivializes Devil May Cry, the enemies in the Devil May Cry game. But you can only have it for like 10 seconds. So it's really not that bad. It balanced out overall. But it does, like, when he goes into it and he unlocks it, it's like, okay, easy mode for that 10 seconds. Then there's the styles. I thought Nevin, the guitar from Devil May Cry 3, was the silliest weapon that they could ever give Dante, and I was wrong. It's this hat and scarf. He got a hat and scarf as a weapon. And first and foremost, when he unlocks it, the whole cutscene is him dancing a Michael Jackson dance routine. And the weapon's premise is to burn your only currency to deal damage. And I was like, this is a fucking silly weapon. But in turn, if you upgrade the weapon, it becomes the best weapon to farm red orbs, because the weapon puts a debuff on the enemy, and as you attack, the enemy drops red orbs. So you
Okay.
can go from 20,000 red orbs in one enemy string to maybe 40,000. It almost would double your red orbs. Unless you get hit, then you pay red orbs to take the damage. Um, the game got rid of potions, and instead they gave you like healing spots that's consistent throughout the levels, which I thought that was fair. Um, if the game threw something that was challenging at you, one or two enemies would drop a green orb to keep it going. That made sense. The camera was 100% in your control. Dante got um Dante got this move, these gauntlets, that was all sorts of things. It was karate, it was kempo, it was capoeira. I don't know how they fit all those moves into one character, because even he got a motorcycle that he used as like he would rev the motorcycle and the wheels would attack and it would deal like multiple damage to enemies, and it was good for guard breaking enemies. And then on top of that, they reintroduced Cerberus, which was the ice nunchucks that now had lightning attacks to it and fire attacks to it and ice attacks to it. And then you could switch all your modes in on the fly mid combo. I was like, I could play as this character all fucking day long. Like, I would replay this character all day long. Um, so when it comes down to the overall premise for Devil May Cry 5, the fact that it tied in the situation with Virgil and Dante, on the simple fact that Sparta set them up, that if one Sparta set one up to have to learn to accept his place as being half human, being half devil, and then the other one to accept the fact that that he's going to feel misplaced and he should embrace who he is. So the twins, in my personal opinion, were a good contrast between each other. And it reminds me of the anime called Inuyasha, where the main character, Esoteric knows Inuyasha.
Inuyasha, yeah.
Yeah. Esoteric is familiar because it's similar situation in Inuyasha where the brothers were their father was some all powerful demon and he left them two swords. He left each one a sword, and one sword was to teach the brother who was considered the antagonist the importance of life, and then the other one was to teach the main character that if necessary that sometimes it's necessary to take life.
Yeah.
So the main character got the destructive sword, whereas the antagonist got the peaceful sword. His sword can't deal damage, it can only bring a person back to life. Um, it was similar with Virgil and Dante because Dante really, in Devil May Cry 5, it explains that even though he's an older, grayed out, mature version of himself, he still didn't really understand who he was or what his father expected of him and why his father gave him rebellion versus Yamato. And when he finally figured it out, he combined with rebellion. So you lose rebellion as a weapon. You combine with it, and that's how you get his special Devil Trigger mode. Whereas on the flip side, for Virgil, Virgil threw away his humanity, which gave him all the power he wanted. But because he abandoned his humanity, he didn't have the sensibility to keep it in control. And I thought that was a really good contrast between those two characters. Um, so Virgil becoming my more favorite twin, he still is, but I definitely can see a deeper side of Dante now, where the immature Dante that was in Devil May Cry 3, not only being young, but I also understand that he was kind of like running away from who he really is. He didn't really want to accept who he was. So while he embraced how powerful he was, he just didn't want to accept the fact that what he considers his deadbeat dad to that all that source came from him or what his purpose was because his parents never actually told him. So story wise, I definitely have gained more respect for Dante. I will not say that he's a flat character anymore. I'm not gonna say that anymore, and that perspective of the character has changed 100%. Um, but for everything that Virgil has gone through or everything that Virgil has done, I still love how Virgil I still love the fact that Virgil he took a darker path in comparison to Dante, yes, but clearly shows that even though he's the antagonist, even though he's the calm, collected one between the two of them, or he's the sinister one between the two of them, he also was misplaced and misguided, and he really didn't know who he was either. So that still shows that regardless of abandoning his humanity and creating V, he still was human enough there was still a human aspect to him where it's like we as people sometimes go through our whole life and not know what our purpose is, and for some of us we make bad decisions, and for some of us we're able to make good decisions or come to peace of who we are and make better decisions out of that. And that's what I connected the two twins to with. And then Nero being their conscience, and he was the one that came in between the two of them and is like, hey, squash this. This is unnecessary. You guys are equal. This is pointless. So at that point where it ends, Dante and Virgil get stuck in the demon world to prevent the gate from ever opening again. So Dante passes the torch to Nero to keep the human side safe, just in case they ever fail. Nero is their failsafe to bring peace back and balance out everything. And I thought that was a beautiful way to end Devil May Cry, Dante's and Virgil's storyline, anyways. The reason is because after 5 games of them going opposites, at the end, they now have to work together pretty much for the rest of time to prevent everything that their father was trying to do from the get-go. So in the end, the father got what he wanted. Pretty much. Sparta
Phew.
got what he wanted in the end. Um, but they still fight each other while they wait for demons to do something stupid. Um, so yes, for me, when it came to the gameplay of the combo systems, Dante had a lot of moves. Nero had a lot of moves. I'm replaying the game again as Virgil. Um, the combo system was really nice, flushed out. Enemies are challenging. They're counting you correctly. The bosses are challenging. The bosses are fun to play and fun to fight. I will not lie. Um, and then on top of that, the story mode and understanding these characters overall came into a complete full circle and made sense to me. So that's why I say for me, Devil May Cry 5 for me is my favorite Devil May Cry. I will play that game again. I don't need to be paid to do it. I will do it out of fun. So I like Devil May Cry 5 and I recommend it. Um the Netflix show didn't do the series justice after playing the 5 games. I still don't think the Netflix show was bad as a show or as an animation or as someone who doesn't really care, but they just want to see, a cool character, I guess. Um, it that's fine, but the Netflix show definitely had some new age culture to it where they humanize demons. And instead of it just being called whatever that place was that demons came from in the actual video games, they changed the name, and then they made it so that it was more like you had demons that wanted peace and just wanted a better life for their family, so they were leaving that place to come to Earth to find better a better life. Like how I guess someone would leave their country to come to go to another country for a better life for their family. None of that was represented in any of the Devil May Cry games. The Devil May Cry games had completely put it in my head that the enemies that come out of that gate are all bad. They are all barbaric. They are all unevolved. They just want destruction. Whereas the Netflix show had humanoid demons that just was like, oh, I just want to take care of my kids and make a living. Yay, let's go to America and live off government assistance. So another thing too was Lady's character in Devil May Cry 5 in the Devil May Cry Netflix series was way exaggerated than in the Devil May Cry games. She was there, but they tried to make her seem like she was some all-powerful character that can take on any demon of any sorts in any way, shape, or form. And that is not how she's represented in the video games. In all honesty, to the more stronger demons, she lost often. The only in Devil May Cry 3, Dante even said it to her, you can't beat Virgil. Sit down, leave it alone. And she became a boss fight, which was a joke of a boss fight. Um, and within the cutscene, he's saying to her, you need to stop. Like, you can't do this, and you need to accept the fact that that this is what it is and move on with your life. And that's what had to happen. And but in the Netflix series, they made it seem like she was some kind of um Samus Aran like character with the worst nasty ass attitude who was constantly cursing, can take on
Yeah.
any demon, no matter how powerful the demon was. And I felt like they over exaggerated her character.
Yeah, she was like a Buffy
Um,
the Vampire Slayer type of deal, just with
yeah, like
demons.
she definitely was not as powerful as she should have been. They represented her way out of context of what she was in Devil May Cry, in the Devil May Cry video game series. And then there was, what I liked about the Netflix show is that they took a major bad guy from each game and turned them into the rabbit's main henchmen, which I thought was pretty cool. So if you guys ever watch an episode, there's the blob thing, which came from Devil May Cry 1. Nothing came from Devil May Cry 2 because that doesn't exist. Devil May Cry 3 was
The brothers.
the brothers, right? The elemental brothers, Rudra and Agni. Devil May Cry 4 was the snake lady, and then Devil May Cry 5 was an imitation of whatever Virgil was in Devil May Cry 1, whatever they called him. What was his?
Oh,
What was his
Neo
name?
Angelo.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Right. So Neo Angelo was reintroduced in Devil May Cry 5, but like more of an imitation because it's Devil May Cry 5 enemies came really from Virgil's point of view of the world. So Neo Angelo was re-represented. Oh, and another thing too, for those of you who played V, the 3 summons that he had were major enemies from Devil May Cry 1. The Shadow Cat, the bird, and the golem thing that he would summon in Devil Trigger was actually the blob thing, that blob boss fight nightmare where you had to turn on the lights. Yeah. Yeah. Those were, because again, Devil May Cry 1 was Mundus trying to get into Dante's head by using Virgil. Virgil were connected to those enemies directly. So when V was represented, V took Virgil's imagination and recreated them as familiars he can summon.
Okay.
So anyways, yeah, the Netflix show I don't think did the series any real justice. They had him activate Devil Trigger by being scared or put in a position where he had to release a large amount of energy. And that's not how Devil Trigger works in the series. To my understanding, it's once they accept who they are partially, then the Devil Trigger starts to get stronger. And that's why Nero's Devil Trigger is stronger than Virgil's and Dante's, because Nero automatically accepted who he was once he found out what he was. Another thing that's cool too is that if you guys ever look up Nero's Devil Trigger form, it's more angelic. It looks more like an angel, whereas Dante's and Virgil's look like demons. And I also like that contrast because as roughneck or as rude as Nero is, he is more pure-hearted than the two of them, and he truly does live by peace and not war until you piss him off. So I do like the fact that he's more, his contrast was so different from his father and uncles
Yeah, he got a
in
girl to
terms of
worry
Devil
about.
Trigger.
He got
Right.
Kyrie
And
to
that
worry
too.
about.
Kyrie, yeah, he had Kyrie to worry about, but he had a lot more to lose. And because he had a lot more to lose, his he accepted his humanity better than Dante and Virgil. So he got a stronger Devil Trigger mode. That's a smarter thing, apparently. So yeah, the Netflix show, I don't think it's a bad thing to watch if you want to watch it, but you got to watch it with a grain of salt, and you got to understand that it's not truly representing how great the Devil May Cry series is. It's just people who want to take a popular name and turn it into a culture bait 8-episode sit down. That's how I looked at it. Because again, there's a lot of things in there that was just like, yeah, that's so for today's culture. That's not even funny. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Dante has my respect now. I think I do understand him being more of a fully fledged character. Devil May Cry 5 definitely did put that in perspective for me better. Virgil is still my favorite of all the characters. I love his fighting style. Um, I love the fact that yes, while he was misguided, he still wasn't. He still had. He still made the same mistakes that any human would make. And I think that's a part of being human, right? Making mistakes and learning from them or accepting them. And then Nero coming in to just like shut everything down and made them realize that it's pointless, but then ultimately taking the crown of Devil Hunter and opening his own business called Devil May Cry. So it's a franchise that I these last 5 weeks I did not regret at all, except week 2 because of Devil May Cry 2. So yeah, that's my take on the franchise.
Ah, all
Awesome.
right. Okay. Well, um, yeah. Unfortunately, DMC Devil May Cry 2 is considered like the Dark Souls 2 of
The franchise,
of the franchise. It was made by different people. I believe it was made because the success of one was like, oh, we didn't know this game would pop off so hard. Um, we got to make something. That's why there's rumors going around that Lucrezia, I believe that's her name, um, that was like an independent game and she was the main character, and they just kind of flipped the script and made it a Devil May Cry game. That's why she feels more fleshed out and more
Mm.
like her combat fits that game more than Dante, because it was going to be a game that had nothing to do with Devil May Cry and was going to be her game.
I
Um,
I
I
thought
couldn't
that
find if that was true.
I thought 2 was the one where they were like it was supposed to be Resident Evil, but then they kind of like canned it and transitioned it to Devil May Cry.
No,
No,
that was
one.
Devil May Cry. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Devil May
first
Cry
Devil
was
May Cry.
actually supposed to be Resident Evil 4. So there's like beta
Mm.
footage of Leon running around in the castle that is the castle from Devil May Cry, and I don't know the reasoning why they moved on from it, but they had so much already worked on. They were like, well, it'd be a shame to throw all of these assets away, so they decided to make a brand new IP using the assets they were going to make for what would have been Resident Evil 4, and the Devil May Cry was born.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you enjoyed the series. It is definitely iconic. It is definitely, when people talk about top RPGs, top action games, top platformers, Devil May Cry, or top video games in general, Devil May Cry is always put on that list.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
they all have their flaws. I think if I had to like nail down a personal favorite for me, I actually kind of like DMC4 for some reason. I really have
Oh yeah.
yeah, I really
Mhm.
have a soft spot for 4. Um, I I didn't mind Nero so much. It just kind of reminded me of Dante from Devil May Cry 3, but I liked that he had a purpose. I felt like for a while Dante didn't have a purpose, and you kind of said that it kind of all came to a head in 5, which I didn't beat 5.
Yeah.
I'll probably go back to it
Mm.
and play it, but for Nero's, like, if you take apart that it's a Devil May Cry game, it's like, oh, Nero's like his girlfriend's in danger. That's a noble, in my opinion, that's a noble goal to do what Nero did. It's just
Mhm.
trumped up to 11 because of the Devil May Cry game. So of course he's got a sword that revs like a motorcycle handle, and he has
Mhm.
extendo arm. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, so 4 was always my personal favorite. It combined the mesh of like it looking good but still playing well. So I think it was like a happy medium. But yeah, I'll
Mhm.
let these guys speak and kind of give their thoughts on your retro analysis.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Well, this is a perfect example, ladies and gents. Those of you who are viewing, where you must, you know, in order to fully understand something, you might have to like research and engage in it, because there was countless discussions about Wolf's disdain for Dante. He just did not like him at all. He's a piece of crap,
Mhm.
etc., etc. Gravitated more towards Virgil. That's still
Mhm.
the same result as of right now. However, Dante is given a little more respect, and because you saw more of his depth as opposed to just him being all cherry and snarky in fighting games and whatnot. So that's awesome. Um, Never played 5, so I have the game but just haven't booted it up. Um, it is really insightful, the information that you provided. It felt like it was an epic conclusion. But
Yeah.
given the franchise, they're probably gonna make a six. So they're probably gonna mess that up entirely. But who knows? We'll see. Um, my favorite overall was three. I kind of fall into that wagon because of like everything that it pretty much offered. Like it was like the flashiness, the gameplay. That's when everything kind of like skyrocketed. Um, but I must say, I believe it was four where one of my favorite unique weapons was the Pandora's box. Like that was like super unique, where it just like formed different like weapons
Oh yeah, there's
entirely and
different
whatnot.
weapons.
And I loved how he utilized it in the cutscene. Um, what else? I don't think you mentioned this, Wolf, but the soundtracks for the games are pretty
I was
pretty
gonna mention
tough.
that Devil May Cry 5 soundtrack is phenomenal. Like the game is damn near perfect to me, personally.
Ooh,
As
okay.
when compared to the four predecessors,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a Devil May Cry game, it's peak of what I would expect out of an action-packed game coming from Capcom, where combos are not needed but rewarded. You get well rewarded for combos.
Mm-hmm.
So it, I'll just let you keep talking.
No, no, I get it. Like you can gush
Mhm,
forever about the game. I trust your feedback on it. So I mean,
mhm.
maybe in the near future, I'll probably boot it up. I mean, I had every intentions of doing so, but you talking about it kind of like maybe revitalize that spirit to like be more inclined to play
Mhm.
it. Um, as for the show, yeah, I can definitely see the discrepancies. They, as opposed to the game, which is like primarily black and white, they kind of did some gray areas within it. But I
Yeah.
did I did enjoy the action. They did personify Dante in his younger years down to the T. He was super snarky, super ecstatic,
Mhm,
energetic, very stylish and whatnot. Um,
mhm,
Spoiler alert, they didn't show Virgil to the very end, but he did make an appearance and he was like behind the scenes as to everything that was transpiring. Um, Lady, yes, absolutely, they gave her way too much shine. If anybody would have been in that position, it should have been Trish. Um,
mhm.
but I didn't mind the slight variation in the story. I mean, nowadays you have to they have to make things a little more appealing cinematically in order for people to want to like tune in, and it was okay. I've seen worse things. Like I've seen like worse shoe-ins for a story arc. So it was okay for me. If they didn't deviate from Lady's backstory and like what she does instead of being in the Captain Commando squad, because that's pretty much what they were wearing entirely. Um,
Mhm.
it would have been
Yeah.
it would have been okay. That was like pretty much my biggest gripe about the game.
And
Uh,
remember, Arkham, her dad was the main villain for Devil May Cry 3. In a sense, he wasn't the final villain, but he wasn't the final boss, but he
Yeah.
was the boss. He was the guy that was pretty much putting everything together. And the 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 anime, they killed him off. She killed him at 6 years old.
yeah.
So, or 7 years. She was a child because he hadn't fully transformed into a demon yet. He was on his verge of doing so when he ate the mother, and then she killed him. So it's like you you took away you kind of like dev how can I put it?
Like her drive,
You
you kind of diminish her drive to become who she
Right,
is. Yeah.
exactly. Instead of her drive, like Lady became who she was because of her drive to killing her father. Instead, they flipped it to where she already killed her father, and now her drive is to eradicate all demons because she felt like if they didn't exist, her father wouldn't have become obsessed to kill her mother. And to me, that's overcomplicating the character already. Not to mention you overcomplicated the character to create a character that's just unlikable. Like I didn't like her at all, and I didn't know who she really was.
Yeah, they just made her
So
another Sasuke, pretty much. Like
yeah,
that's
like
all
it
it
was just
was.
like she to me she was just like an overbearing character that was in every episode consistently. And a part of me, before I understood who Lady was, I was like, please die. Um, let a demon eat her or something, but that didn't happen. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I'm just gonna end with this. I think what they're gonna do, they're probably in the next season. They're gonna find out that her father is still alive. He's probably running around in the demon world or whatever, and then that's gonna push her to have that drive again to like eradicate him or whatever. But overall, I'm really excited that you enjoyed the games. Mission accomplished. Let's see if we can get you on the Dark Souls train, the second Soulsborne train. Let's see if you can finish all of those.
Don't push it. Don't push it. Don't push it.
And yeah, with that being said,
Mm.
I'm gonna pass it on to Calm.
If he has any feedback.
I don't even know what to say. Where do I start? Uh, so I didn't play. I didn't finish five. I played five. DMC five is the best selling Devil May Cry game for Capcom. As of late last year, they crossed the milestone of 10 million copies sold,
Wow.
which is very good. It's the best selling
Mhm.
game in the franchise's history.
Okay, okay.
Second to that was DMC, the 2013 like reboot. That had 3 million copies sold.
That's
Which
actually
Really?
pretty surprising.
Wow. Okay.
it's
Yeah, you saw
it's
my
it's not
face.
Mm.
it's not surprising because I mean it came out at a time off the heels of Devil May Cry 1, 2, 3, and 4.
That's
Mhm.
true. That's a
And
good point.
so the franchise had already been solidified by that point, and the internet isn't what it was or what it is today. Like there's more information on the internet today than it was 10, 12 years ago.
True.
So people were more inclined to just buying a title
You know what? Yeah.
simply off of just the cover and the legacy. It was like, oh, Devil May Cry, done. Like I don't even have to think about it. I know it's going to be good. So it doesn't surprise
Mhm.
me that it sold that well. And there are people who really liked that particular game. And from my understanding, that game in a vacuum isn't bad at all. It's just
Compared
it
to.
just wasn't it didn't align well with the other games from a story
Yes.
standpoint.
Yeah.
So but as a game, just pure gameplay, it was a competent game. It just wasn't what you would expect from a Devil May Cry game from a story and character development standpoint. And because it was considered non-canon or like a different story, that kind of pissed off some fans, myself included. Which I never bought it and I never played it, and I probably won't at any point. I don't know if I ever will.
I don't think you miss
Um,
out
Mhm.
on much if you don't.
yeah,
Mhm.
so we'll see. But anyway, so yeah, DMC five doesn't shock me that was your favorite game. Mine's
Mhm.
is Devil May Cry one, just because it was my introduction to the game, into the
Mhm.
franchise. I think three is the strongest, but that's based off what I've played. I'm sure if I played five, that probably would change.
Mhm.
Um, I'm more interested to know about the Netflix show, which I did not watch, and I don't know if I ever will. Was Dante not the main character?
He
He
was the
was.
main character, but in this point, this Netflix show was Devil May Cry 3,
Yeah.
where he's learning, like he's just learning on who he is, like what is he, so he didn't discover Devil Trigger up until later in that series. So he didn't know how to Devil Trigger. He just knew he was powerful. He knew he was basically immortal. He just didn't know why he was
Yeah.
until people started to explain to him like, okay, you have to have demon in your system in some way, shape, or form. The main antagonist was saying, hey, you're the son of Sparta, so this is why you're so powerful. And he would reject the fact that he's demon, because in the Netflix show, the father have the mother has them, but the father is non-existent. And to my understanding, in the actual video game series, Sparta was there with them for a good amount of time until they were old enough, I think, to actually learn how to fight. Because there is a line that Dante says to Virgil where he says something along the lines of, remember when dad used to scream at us for such and such reasons? And they would like banter with each other. And so it acknowledges, the series does acknowledge the fact that the father was there with them for a good amount of years for them to remember who he was. But the Netflix show, he wasn't there. The mother, the same scenario, mother died in fire from an attack and Virgil went missing. So Dante thought Virgil died too. He got stuck in the closet, but there was no Sparta at any given point in their life.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay. So I mean, based off how the show go, and I don't care for spoilers. You could spoil that. I don't
Mhm.
care. Do you, if there's a season 2, which I'm pretty sure there will be, because I mean the show is successful from my understanding. Is Dante gonna? Is the season 2 gonna be more like what we know Devil May Cry to be?
So
Does
that's
Lady die? Spoiler alert to anybody listening.
no.
They.
I
So
don't think it will.
Because it sounds like she was the main character from what you
no,
guys.
it was more of a. It was more like a partnership. So like she wasn't outshining Dante in any way, shape, or form. It was more like the power scale between her and the demons. Like she was way more capable than she should have been in the series as opposed to like the games or whatnot. So that's
She
where it
was
was.
unreasonably on par with Dante.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, that's the thing
In the
because
beginning though, that was like
so
you know,
was there explained that she gets any like special like her suit gives her enhanced
No.
physical abilities? Okay, because yeah, Wolf brought up a good point in 3 when you had her boss battle with her. The only reason she caught Dante off guard, it's the same reason like a cat doesn't expect the mouse to fight back. That's like
Right.
the best correlation I can make. So he was more surprised, like, whoa, this chick is really
Mhm.
trying over here. And
Mm.
it was more like messing with her because he knows he could just destroy her. And she might be the pinnacle of human hunters,
but
but he was just like, oh wow, I didn't think you would step up. That's pretty neat. Good for you, champ. Good for you,
well
little buddy.
that's what was
You did good, kid.
so that's what was essentially okay. So here's how it was depicted in
But
the
now,
series.
show lady sounds like I'm boss babe, and you're gonna respect me, or I'm gonna
Yes.
No, no,
don't mansplain to me why I can't be a demon hunter. That's what I'm
it
getting.
it was
That's what happened. That's what it was.
no. Okay, so here's what happened, right? It's well established that Dante, if he took us seriously, he could have destroyed at any given point. There was a lot of parts within the series where because the main interaction that they had, like the main fight that they had was like the first couple of episodes or whatnot. And the only reason why she had to step up because Dante was super lax. He dropped his guard. He was trying to talk to her as opposed to fight her. And then there was some, as far as I recollect, there was some device that she had the up on him with that she kind of like snuck on him, and then that's what led to him like.
Oh,
So it
so she
wasn't.
had
It
a
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't on some
she had a
like.
MacGuffin. That's what it's called. She had a MacGuffin. It's
Yeah,
a super special item that makes her really good.
No.
So
I'm sorry to cut you off, Esoteric.
go ahead.
I have to put this point in before we run up on time. Here's my thing. They use they they did a play on the scene where it makes it look like Dante was incompetent at that moment or super lax at that moment, but but it's truly structured to the where they used his free mind, his worry-free mental thinking to give her the upper hand.
Yeah, that.
And
Yeah,
right. And that's not even in Devil May Cry 3 when he first interacts with her, she still couldn't touch him because when he grabbed her upside down when she was falling, she immediately shot at him. And yes, it did hit him in the face. Yes, but that's because he chose not to dodge it. Just like what Gunnar said, it was more like, oh, this chick is really trying. She tried to kill me. Like, what the hell? Right?
mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessarily like she could beat him. She didn't have a weapon. The most she had was like rocket boots. Dante can move faster than rockets. Um, she had rocket boots. What she did was somehow knocked him out. And when she knocked him out, she implanted a bomb in his neck. So if he increases his devil powers, the bomb is set to detonate, to explode in his neck. And for whatever reason, for a guy with supposedly super strength, they had him in these special handcuffs apparently that he couldn't break out of, because apparently America discovered a way to suppress demon super strength with handcuffs. So
Huh.
for me, the way it's set up is, it wasn't set up to the point where, like, if it was properly set up, even though he's lax and he's carefree, he still would have overpowered her. Period. If it was set up correctly. But they use the fact that, oh, I'm so free, I'm nonchalant, she's gorgeous, she has breasts, I want to talk to her. They use that and to basically devolve his ability to fight for that moment to give her the upper hand. And I don't think that was fair to Dante as a character for
So
who he is.
it's like what they did to Joel in Last of Us 2, where they made him a fucking moron for the sake of building up another character who so happened to be a female character as well. In the
Correct.
same way that they have Batman and Superman interact all the time, where it's just like Batman caught him off guard, and it's just like,
Yeah. And then like
okay. When
the
it's like Superman, it's like he could crush him if he wanted to. but
yeah,
whatever.
and it's like because the way I was thinking of it was like Goku, like most powerful being, when he's laxed, he gets shot with a regular laser beam and it hits him and then like he's in like excruciating pain. So I that's the way I saw it. It was like, oh, I'm playing
So,
around, I'm not taking shit
in a
seriously.
nutshell, it's just bad writing.
Yeah,
Because that's
because
what that is. It's bad writing.
the thing is, that whole fight scene up until Lady got into the fight, he was dominating people the same exact way he fought her. He
Well, to me,
dominated
it
all
sounds
the
like
men.
she was forced in there. Like, if you just removed her entirely, how bad would that affect the story?
It wouldn't have, to be honest. If they had toned her down, it wouldn't have affected, because she didn't really do anything. She was the character that was easily agitated. She was the character with the hot temper. She was the character who began every sentence with the F word and ended every sentence with the F word.
So
She was the
it's to me, and I'm asking questions. I didn't watch the show, and I
Yeah.
probably won't.
Mhm.
It just sounds like they wanted a strong female character in the show.
Correct, and that was their way of doing it, which I thought was horrible.
Okay, so she sounds like a tokenized character. And so the other thing I was hearing like people talk about too with shows, like they were like good demons, like demon refugees or whatever,
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the
coming through or
humanizing of
whatever.
demons.
And it's
Yeah.
just like I haven't played all the Devil May Cry games, but like
I don't think you're missing a
they're
mission.
all pretty. I don't think there's a mission that I didn't play or some story beat
Save
in
the
the fifth
kid
one.
demons.
It's the
That's like
whole Thanos syndrome. It's the
Mhm.
what was Thanos' real intentions? He wanted to be with death, so he wanted to kill half the cosmos. It's like, okay, we can't run with that. Let's make him a little more humanized, and let's give him a perspective where people would be like, he's bad, but I can see where he's justified in what he's saying. That's pretty much what it was. That's what that
I don't.
implement was.
I know what Gunner's gonna say. Another
Okay.
instance of like having the anti-hero or the gray,
The gray
the
area,
gray
mental
area
state.
bad guy where it's like he's sympathetic or a justified heel or whatever. I'm not totally against that because it's an interesting dynamic in any story, or it can be if it's done well and if it's done sparsely. Like you can't do
Yeah,
that
there you
too
go. That's
much
the
because
key
then it
word.
becomes kind of like, all right, here we go again. Like it becomes a trope and it becomes like something you don't even want to see anymore because now it's just annoying. Now it feels like low hanging fruit. Like, well, most people think this is interesting. We're just gonna take this thing and then stuff it, shoehorn it into this story that we're trying to tell.
That's true, but I mean, I can't.
I hate that. So
I don't know. I don't know if I can fault them specifically for that, considering that they've had an anime show prior, and it was the whole Dante good, demons bad. I don't know if
I
anybody
don't know why
watched
they
it,
couldn't
but
just why not just take the fucking source material and just have Dante fighting the forces of evil, and then he's conflicted when his brother's involved. And so now the story becomes these two brothers who are opposite sides of the spectrum fighting for, world domination or whatever, or world protection, world domination.
That's 290s,
Whatever,
man.
like
That's
that's
290s.
You mean like what the 5 video games are about?
that's good enough. Like
That's 290s, man. That's 290s. That's why it's like we're
And then
we're outdated,
the
unfortunately.
crazy the crazy thing is to push that further. The demons, the rabbit or the main bad guy is actually a human who sewed on a rabbit mask on his head. But he's human and he uses like this machine to help give him like demon blood, whatever. They did the whole contrast where he was being bullied in
Orphanage.
the orphanage that he grew up in, and the kids were really mean, and the lady who was taking care of them was really mean to him, and he didn't eat anything, and he would get kicked around, and then all of a sudden, out of I don't know, God's ass, he just farted a demon hole that opened up, and the boy went through it, or the antagonist went through it, and he found good demons that nurtured him and made him grow up. And then when he becomes an adult, he interacts into Lady for the first time. This is a flashback. He sends some of the good demons to the real world, and I guess Lady's squad had got a ping on the gate opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Ladies.
stop you right there because anything else you say doesn't even matter to me anymore. So what this sounds like, and I think I shared this video with either Esoteric or somebody, where it was an Instagram video, and it was a guy who took an ice cream sandwich and put it in a blender, and he blended it, and then he took the blended ice cream sandwich, and so I didn't send it to you.
No,
so
you
then
sent
he
it to
put
me.
it.
Yeah, you sent it to me.
I did, right? Yeah. Okay, then he baked it, right?
Mhm.
Then he took it out and cut it into like basically brownies or whatever, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So he took ice cream sandwich and made it into brownies. So then he took the chopped up ice cream sandwich brownies and then mixed it again in the blender with another ice cream sandwich and then made more brownies. And then he kept like doing it over and over, like to where he had like this mega brownie ice cream sandwich thing, right? And the guy who was watching the guy do that in the video was just like, bro, just eat the ice cream sandwich. That's what this whole arc of story you're telling me is the ice cream sandwich all over again. Just eat the ice cream sandwich. The ice cream sandwich is already great. Why do all this extra shit? It's just layers of bullshit.
Yeah.
For who? Like I don't understand. So yeah, that's I've heard enough. I don't want to watch the show.
Yeah, we're over on time anyway, so
yeah, I just want to stop there because I could already feel it. Just me looking at the clock, I think we're like 10 or 12 minutes over, right?
Give or take.
Give or take. Okay. I'm gonna play the 5th game for sure. I have the Devil May Cry Special Edition on PS5. I'll play that.
I highly recommend it.
Same.
I haven't turned on my PS5 since it's been almost 2 months. I also have to turn off the auto renew on my PlayStation Plus because
No,
I ain't paying for that shit. I haven't used it in fucking ages. So cool. The only thing that I've gotten out of this is 2 things: Devil May Cry 5 worth playing, which I already know, and 2, Netflix show not worth watching. So thank you, appreciate it, and I'm glad that Devil May Cry is now a more respected franchise for you.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to future installments and us maybe talking about our experience.
Definitely
Those games in the next few years, whenever that may be. So anyway, that's it. Gunner, you can close it out. I'm done.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Devil May Cry, good series. Show, your miles may vary, depending how old you are. So anyway, that being said, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Wolf's discovery that is the Devil May Cry series. If anything we've said has spurred you to play the franchise, if you've never played it before, highly recommended. Great series, can't go wrong. You got 4 solid games and a an okay game, a video game to play with. So, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what your favorite Devil May Cry is. What's your least favorite Devil May Cry? Are you a super fan of the show? Are you the writer of the show? Let us know. We'll engage in the comments and tell you how bad you are. Social medias, check them out. We got them, whichever one you prefer. We've got them all. We got a Discord channel. We're looking to grow our community there. We post a bunch of memes. We try to get groups together to play different video games. So we're trying to get the Discord community thriving, and there's a spot there for everybody, so you won't be disappointed. Speaking of video games, Esoteric is our resident streamer. He streams on the Logical Gamers channel on Twitch. He looks for people in the Discord to play multiplayer games. Sometimes he plays some Fall Guys, some Call of Duty. It varies. So if you're a fan of either or maybe you can convince him to play a new one. He's a variety streamer. He plays a bunch of stuff. He's recently gone back in time to the Game Boy era. Is playing some good old Pokemon Yellow. So if that's your jam, if you want to sit there and kind of wax poetic about our early childhood, come join us. He streams every Monday and Friday.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll pop in a random stream over the weekend or a midweek stream. So make sure you subscribe, join the Discord, so you're always notified when he's streaming. So now that all of that is out the way, sorry. Thank you, gentlemen, for another fine episode. Thank you, the audience, for your attention and your listening. Without you, we got nothing. And that being said, take it easy. Have a good night. Till next time.